howdy, hey, how is everybody doing? And welcome back to Disney Daily. In today's video, we are breaking down episode number 9 called The Bad Hair Day in the Monsters at Work TV series. I think this episode not only gave us a lot more insight into shredded doors, but really developed Tyler's character arc further. For those who maybe don't know, this is the second to last episode, and I want you all to write in the comments what you think will happen in the season finale next week. Now, with all that said, let's move on to the breakdown. At the start of the episode, we see Tyler, who is sitting in the elevator talking to the giant eye. He confesses to the giant eye that he feels he has never really fit in, but goes on to say that he is going to put the audition disaster behind him and that today he is going to be the best mifter he can possibly be. He then jokingly asks the giant eye if he can chew on a donut, and then it cuts to the intro song. The next scene takes us inside the mifter break room where Cutter, Val, and Duncan seem to be rearranging things. We then see Tyler walk in and offers the team donuts. Just then, Val freaks out, grabs the donut box, throws it back to Duncan, who then throws it into the trash and lights it on fire. Tyler, shocked by the whole ordeal, says to them, "I'm sorry, should I have brought bagels?" Val tells him, "No, we love donuts," but David didn't. Tyler confusingly asks, "David, the hair in the jar guy?" Fritz then comes out of his office and the monsters all line up in a single file line by the break room door. All of them seem to know what's about to happen except for Tyler. As the door to the break room opens, we hear singing, and all of the mifters one by one begin to greet David. When we get to Tyler, he looks lost. Val nudges him and reminds him to say hi to David. But as the camera pans away from Tyler, we see that no one is there, and it seems that the mifters are literally talking to thin air. It becomes obvious as we see David's old desk that he has passed away, and the mifters have chosen to honor him in their own unique way. Fritz gives a small speech about how David was the perfect mifter and how he will never be forgotten. Cutter then tells the story of how they lost David, which was essentially that he was pulled in the shredder shaft and that all that was left of him was a patch of his pink hair. Fritz then tells everyone that in honor of David, they must not get their hair cut, and that he is going to light the candle of remembrance later on that day. We then cut to a salon where we see a two-headed monster getting their hair done. The camera then pans and we see all the mifters have made their way to the salon. Fritz tells the hairdresser, "Don't take anything off the sides. Actually, let's just leave it how it is." A confused Tyler turns to Val and says, "She's just cutting the air." Val turns to him and responds, "Right, it's not a haircut." Cutter then reveals to Tyler that since David never cut his hair, the way they show their respect is by not getting their hair cut also. Tyler then proceeds to ask the group, "He really was the perfect mifter, huh?" Each of the mifters then give their own reasoning for why David was the perfect mifter, which seems to intimidate and weigh on Tyler. Tyler then offers to go handle some of the daily tasks back at the break room so that the others can stay back and relax and not get their hair cut. You can really tell at this point in the show that Tyler has completely changed his mind about being a mifter, and now he is doing everything in his power to be one. As Tyler leaves the hair salon, the mifters all ask if he can handle all the tasks alone and if they can rely on him like they could with David. Tyler just smiles and leaves the salon. We next see Tyler back at the mifter break room, and the first task they entrusted him with is to feed Duncan's pet, Roto. After Tyler feeds Roto, he goes looking for Cutter's canister, but what he doesn't realize is that he left Roto's cage wide open and the small creature has now escaped. As Tyler tries to chase Roto around the room, the tiny one-eyed monster gets a hold of David's hair and eats it. Tyler is crushed and runs after Roto frantically. Tyler tells Roto that he has to get David's hair back because it means everything to the other mifters, and if he doesn't get it back, he will never become a mifter. As Tyler reaches for Roto, the little monster manages to jump into the company's pipes and escapes Tyler's clutches. We then cut back to the salon where we see Duncan getting his not haircut. Tyler pops in and reports to everyone that everything is going good, but he seems to be very uneasy. Cutter asks, "Are there any problems?" Tyler nervously laughs and says, "Why would there be any problems?" Duncan then asks if Roto has been fed, and Tyler verifies that he has. Val asks Tyler if he is okay, and Tyler just tells her he needs to use the bathroom. We then cut back to Monsters Inc., and we see Tyler making his way through the hallway, who whispers to himself, "I gotta find Roto and somehow get that hair back." Just then, he spots Rose, and he notices her pink hair is the same shade as David's, and he may be able to pass her hair off as his. We then see him grab a pair of scissors and follow Rose to the coffee station, and every time he tries to cut part of her hair, something or someone gets in the way. Gary. After several attempts, Tyler decides to abandon the operation. As he goes to return the scissors, he knocks over Rose's purse and out pops her brush. He sees that the brush has remnants of her pink hair and he thinks about taking it. But just as he is about to, he is caught by Rose, who asks him what he is up to. And instead of lying, Tyler comes clean and tells her he needs a lock of her hair. As she threatens to call security on him, he sees Roto in the pipe overhead and tells her never mind. As Tyler starts to chase down Roto, he passes Val in the hallway, who tells Tyler that she is taking him to where David always had lunch. We then see the Mifters sitting around a table in the middle of a hallway, and they have a special lunchbox with them labeled specifically for David. One of the jokesters from the company passes by and asks them, "Annual David lunch?" To which they all reply yes. The Mifters then explain to Tyler that David always had lunch in the hallways on the way to repairs. Tyler then asks how they got a piece of David's hair to begin with, and Cutter reveals that they found it in the shredder shaft. Tyler eagerly asks, "Where is that exactly?" Duncan then turns to Tyler and reveals to him that the shaft is where the dead doors go to die. He goes on to reveal that when the door division's record shows that a door is no longer safe, the door is redirected to the shredder shaft, where the door is removed from its frame, placed on a conveyor belt, hinges and knobs are detached. It is then blasted with heat, then with sand to remove stickers and paint, and finally shredded. Fritz then reveals the exact location where David had his accident, and Tyler quickly excuses himself so that he can go hunt down where David spent his last moments and hopefully get his hands on another piece of David's hair. We then see Tyler making his way down the door shaft, and Roto seems to be following close behind. As Tyler approaches the closed shaft, he reaches down to pull out David's pink hair. As he does, he says to himself, "That was easy," and all the lights turn on around him. Tyler accidentally manages to activate the shaft. After falling to the ground, he not only lets go of David's hair, but he finds himself stuck on the door shredding conveyor belt. Tyler soon realizes the gravity of the situation and that he is going to be shredded soon if he doesn't think quick. So he grabs his helmet and tosses it into the gears with the hopes of causing a jam. The helmet only stops the gears momentarily before shooting it back out at Tyler's head, causing him to fall unconscious. As Tyler is knocked out, he dreams of Heaven's Gates, and the monster at Heaven's Gate turns out to be good old David. David begins to tell Tyler all sorts of commonly used sayings, which doesn't amuse Tyler. Tyler then asks David if he can please have some of his hair, and David agrees. Just before David disappears, Tyler tells him how everybody at Mift loves him and that he wants to know his secret. David, in a calm and soothing voice, tells Tyler, "Be reliable and honest." As David disappears, Tyler wakes up to an empty shaft and an angry Roto, and he sees that his helmet turned off the shredder machine. As Tyler returns Roto back to his cage, he asks him one last time to cough up the hair because he is running out of time. Just then, Rose walks in and reveals to Tyler that she has agreed to give him a lock of her hair. Tyler thanks her and asks why she changed her mind. Rose tells Tyler that he reminds her of herself and that's why she had a sudden change of heart. Tyler sets the glass of Rose's hair next to David's picture and whispers to himself, "There, like nothing ever happened." We then cut to all the Mifters who have gathered again to light the candle of remembrance in honor of David Day. As Fritz lights the candle, he tells them all to gather around and admire what David left behind, which was his hair. As the monsters all gather close to gaze at the hair, they notice that the lock looks different and that someone must have switched it out. Duncan then turns to Tyler and asks, "What happened to the hair?" Just then Roto coughs and spits out David's pink lock of hair. Tyler throws up his hands and comes clean about everything that had happened throughout the day, including his visit to the shredder shaft. All the Mifters are shocked. Tyler plops down on the chair and tells the others, "I'm nothing like David." Fritz, with a smile, turns to Tyler and says, "Well, just now you were honest like David." Val also chimes in and reminds Tyler that he is also reliable for hunting down the hair, just like David was. The team also reveals that there was no need for Tyler to go through all that hassle since Cutter keeps a bag of David's hair under the stairs. And the episode ends with Val and Tyler putting a new lock of David's hair into the glass container. Well, that concludes this episode of Disney Daily. Let me know what you all thought in the comments about episode 9. As always, thanks for being my guest here at Disney Daily. Until next time.